Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Good Dram show for 2014. So, I hope you all had a good Christmas and New Year and had plenty of interesting drams to taste. Right, so the first episode of the new year, I think it's time to have a look at one of my favourite distilleries. Aren't they all, funnily enough? And that is the St George's Distillery in Norfolk. As you know, I've done several videos on their bottlings, but I've now managed to get hold of samples of the new releases. So they should be out and about and available to purchase, I believe. So and we should be getting stock of them, well, hopefully next week, I think. So no real need for me to waffle on about the distilleries. I think I've done enough talking about the St George's Distillery, so we'll just crack straight on, and I'll introduce this afternoon's little lineup. Right, okay, so first off, the not so new bottling, the Chapter 13. As you probably know, that was released for Halloween last year, and it was interestingly enough bottled at 49.1%. The reason being that you add it all up, and it all adds up to 13. The recommended retail price was, you know, all the digits added up to 13, and well, bit of a gimmick, but as I say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So be interesting to see what this one tastes like. Like all of the bottlings, doesn't have an age statement. Was aged in ex-sherry casks. So looking at judging by the colour and having tasted it previously, I would imagine that they refill sherry casks, but we'll get onto that in due course. And these are the two new bottlings. Chapter 14, which is the unpeated spirit they do, now around about 5 or 6 years old, about 46%. So be interesting to see how the spirit has progressed. And equally, Chapter 15, which is the heavily peated version, again bottled at 46% and roughly about the same sort of age, so 5 to 6 years old. So yeah, as you know, been a big fan of the distillery, really like what they're doing, and yeah, it's amazing to think it's now been going sort of like, you know, 6 or so years, and you know, some of now the spirit is coming out with some maturity to it. So let's crack on and start with Chapter 13 then, shall we? Right, okay, so as I was saying, this was bottled or released for Halloween. Really funky bottling, black box with quite a unique, interesting labelling. Really stood out on the shelves. You know, a lot of interest. Let's see what the nose gives us then, shall we? Very subtle on the sherry, like I said, probably refilled. So plenty of that dusty, almost gristy barley, a little bit of white flowers, apricot, bit of hyacinth, little nuttiness. The sherry is not giving sort of like a huge amount. It adds a sort of, you know, a pleasant nuttiness, a little bit of that sort of refill sherry sweetness that you tend to get. Also, I think really nicely balanced. Yeah, it's got that sort of the elegance that you come to expect from the distillery, and it's certainly not swamped by the sherry, and there's definitely no off notes. So palate. That extra alcohol really gives it a kick. Really get hit. Wonderfully nutty. Lightly salted, almost sort of Manzanilla-like sherry rather than Oloroso, but I guess that's probably more down to the fact that that it's a refill sherry, and I know that they tend to use actually PX, I think is what they use, or certainly they use the Pedro Ximénez sherry to season the American oak casks before they use them. So there's a little bit of treacle, a little bit of burnt toffee, but again lots of the floral, apricot, citrus fruit coming through. Robust, a little bit of sort of toffee apple on the finish, a little bit of treacle, like I said, some really nice kind of lightly dusty barley. Extra alcohol really does give it a kick. It really finishes with a bit of a hit. So yeah, like that. That's really impressive. Right. Okay. So on to chapter 14. Like I said, amazing. I think this is now sort of 5-6 years old. That is a lovely nose. A lot of oak. A lot of that sort of fresh, creamy American oak, vanilla, coconut, a little bit of herbally spice, some cinnamon, got a bit of a edginess. The spices are a bit edgy, but again it's quite broad. Some soft barley, bit of banana maybe, apricot. It is starting to mature really, really nicely. There's none of that slightly spirity, sort of Mari-like youthful character that there used to be on some of the earlier bottlings. So it's showing that those kind of notes are now starting to sort of be removed by the length of time that it's spent in oak. Slightly perfumed, again, white flowers, maybe some honeysuckle possibly. Wow, that's a big nose for the distillery. Lots and lots of oak, like I said, but it's not unbalanced. It's not all a big oak monster. You know, there is a lot of oak there, yep, I will give you that, but there's also plenty of other things going on as well, and it's got getting a little bit of crystallized citrus now. Palate. Is that a beautiful finish? Almost edgy rye-like spices. Cocoa, chocolate, bit of coffee. Again, fairly robust. You get the oak up first, lots of the creamy vanilla, but you certainly get that sort of apple, apricot, honeysuckle coming through. You know, that's really very impressive, and it's not just because I like the distillery and I like the people there. You know, at the end of the day, like I keep saying, all I can do is evaluate what is in my glass, and that is exceptionally good. Again, very Irish in character, very soft, very agreeable, again very fruity, but wow, those spices on the finish, it's like, yeah, that's good. That is very good. Right, okay, so finally we have good old chapter 15, about the same sort of age, like I said, as chapter 14, but this is the heavily peated version. And as you may remember from the interview I did with David Fitt, the distiller, he was saying that, you know, they'll take as heavily peated as they can possibly get. So I'm guessing this is probably going to be in and around the sort of 50 parts per million. So anyway, let's see what the nose gives us. Now, you wouldn't be surprised if I said the emphasis is on the peat here. Kind of comes across a bit like sort of old school Caol Ila, quite fresh, very citrusy, lightly astringent, little bit of coastal character, a little bit of coastal note, which is obviously coming from the peat rather than the proximity of the distillery to the coast, because it's not. Got some nice oils, some citrus, a little bit of apricot. Not getting so much of the floral notes from the chapter 14, and I'm not getting so much overt American oak. It's definitely there. It's kind of in the background, but it's very like Caol Ila, and I never find an awful lot of American oak Caol Ila. That is, I never tend to come across an awful lot of overt vanillins. I think they obviously use refill casks in order not to sort of add too much vanilla, to keep the emphasis on the sort of like the peat and the oils, and yeah, that's lovely. That's really nice. Again, I mean, it seems it's coming across a bit like sort of almost like an 8-year-old spirit. There's certainly none of the Mari kind of notes that would sort of indicate relative youth. It's certainly starting to flesh out, and again, give it a bit of time, and it does start to give you a little bit of the sort of slight floral character. Palate. Whoa, that's a peaty mouthful. Earthy, tarry, dense, almost like slabs of peat. Lovely spiciness on the finish, bit of black pepper, some violets, a little bit of salt. Again, I think comparisons with old school Caol Ila are pretty apt actually. It's got that lovely kind of crisp freshness, that citrusness. But that peat is big and really oily, really tarry. Again, getting a little semblance of the spirit character, not a huge amount, because the peat is certainly the dominating factor in this particular bottling, but that is really well put together. Really like that. Very, very, very good. Right, okay, so let's sum this little tasting up. Firstly, you know, big thank you to the distillery for sending me these samples. Always really nice to taste good whiskey, it has to be said, and these 3 particular bottlings were no exception to the rule. Chapter 13, lovely, really nice. Like I said, probably refilled sherry casks, subtle sherry influence, nice, nutty, adding that sort of little bit of extra dimension to the spirit character. Really enjoyable, and like I said, you know, I'm not anti-sherry, never have been. I don't particularly like sherry monsters, but you know, I think sort of used in a balancing way, because that's at the end of the day, that's what I want. I want balance from the whiskey. Using a little bit of sherry cask certainly, you know, adds a little bit of nuance. On to the chapter 14 and 15. Well, you know, the spirit is just, you know, aging remarkably well. It is just sort of, I wouldn't quite say it's à point, but it's certainly getting there. I'm guessing that probably the à point would probably be about sort of 8 to 10 years old when it's got some real freshness to it. But again, I think it will be interesting to kind of like chart the evolution of this particular spirit. Is it going to sort of like, you know, go like say Black Knot, for example, with a bit of age? I mean, will it sort of develop this kind of like mature kind of strawy kind of character? Who knows? And I doubt whether David actually probably knows. It will be a question of let's just sort of see how these things go. But so far, yeah, really impressed with chapter 14. Yes, a lot of oak. You're going to have to like that sort of fairly overt creamy American oak, but oh, that's a big dram, and it shows that, you know, the distillery character is, you know, got some substance to stand up to it, shall we say? And the peated one, chapter 15. Yeah, again, great whiskey, really enjoyable. Obviously, less of the distillery character because the emphasis is more on the peat, which, you know, it's not an issue for me as far as I can see. You do get a feeling of the distillery character, certainly coming through. Although, like I said, the emphasis is certainly on the peat. But you know, really well made whiskey, sort of maturing nicely. So. So there you have it. You know, first tasting of the new year, and I think yeah, this has got the new year off to quite an interesting flyer. So until next time, I have no more whiskey in my glass, and there's a dribble in there. So until next time, good dramming and good afternoon.